For this exercise, we'll work in Microsoft Defender. We're going to be logged in as Avery Howard and have the Copilot owner role. Using the Unified Security Operations Platform, we're going to access Copilot's embedded capabilities in Defender XDR. Toward the end of this exercise, you'll see we'll pivot from Defender XDR to the Copilot standalone experience for security. Now, when we get alerts in Defender XDR, it can often be somewhat overwhelming. For example, if we go over here to investigation and response, for example, and we look at the incidents and alerts that occur within our environment. So when we look at incidents, there's a lot, and they can be kind of overwhelming. For example, if we look at this first incident, which is a human-operated ransomware attack was launched, that can seem kind of ominous. So let's take a look and see what that is. When I open it up, this is a complex incident. You'll see here, all right, you'll see there's a great deal of information. There are 72 alerts associated with this incident involving 16 assets. There's 127 evidence and responses. Look at the investigation graph that shows all the interrelated objects. This is a lot. This is a huge amount of information that we could use to kind of evaluate it. But what you'll notice is that what Copilot for security does is help breaks this information down. Over here on the right, you'll see there's an incident summary. It shows you what the information is, what happened, and it breaks it down by phases. You can see the initial access. You can see lateral movement, credential access, more lateral movement, exfiltration. These correspond to the MITRE ATT&CK framework for defending against enterprise security threats. So it shows me how this incident has evolved, what things happened, where it happened, and identifies specific devices. It indicates what tools were used to launch the executables in this process. So without us really having to add anything additional, we already have a summary of the environment. After we go over the incident summary, one of the things Copilot for Security does is provides us with a guided response. If you scroll down a little bit, you'll find the guided response section. You can see this is broken up into recommendations. Currently, it has 13 recommendations for things around triage, containment, investigation, and remediation. The first item you see in the triage category is to classify the event. If I select classify, you can see I can manage what or how I specify what this event is. I can view or define this as a multi-stage attack, as malware, security testing. I could say it's not malicious. I could use that to verify where or how this is selected. You notice there's a status button here at the top. The status button helps give us an overview of what things have already taken place within the summary that Copilot for Security has done for us. You see the current status is set to all, but if I click here, you'll see I can see new things that are in progress, things that failed, things potentially skipped, and more importantly, things that have already been completed. If you'll note, under our completed recommendations, it says 2 of 13 steps have already been completed. It might be curious to see, well, what are those things are. So if I click completed and I click apply, you'll see that these are classified as automatic attack disruption. Automatic attack disruption is designed to contain attacks in progress, limit the impact on organizations' assets, and provide more time for security teams to remediate the attack fully. As I look at this incident page, I want to keep going a little further to be able to evaluate sort of like, well, what happened? So let's go back over here from Copilot Security into the main incident page. The first incident you see here is a suspicious URL was clicked. That's the first kind of thing that happened in the overall attack story. The alert summary that it generated gives you a wealth of information around that. You'll notice if I click on that, the alert summary then provides details about specifically the alert I'm classifying. It'll show me what it was, the process associated with it. It identifies data collection activities, credential access, malware, discovery activities, and more. There's a lot of information here. So to get a better view of this alert, we can select the Open Alert page. It's the if we think about it, it's the third panel here on the incident graph, just below the title of the alert. All right. On the top of the page is the card for the device, Park City Win 10V. There's an ellipsis here next to that we can select to note the options associated with it. One of those is summarized with the little Copilot icon. If we click that, Copilot will then generate a device summary. It's worth noting that there are many ways you can access device summary, and this is just one convenient method. The summary shows the device is a virtual machine, it identifies the owner of the device, and it shows its compliance status against Intune policies and more. Next to the device card is a card for the owner of the device, Park City Jonah W. If I select Jonah, or Jonah W, in this case, Jonathan Walcott, the alert summary gives you information about that user. The user is an account executive whose enter ID is at risk and insider risk severity is classified as high. These aren't surprising given what you've learned from the Copilot incident and the alert summaries. We can select the ellipsis next to Jonah, and then once again, click Summarize to view a summary generated by Copilot. Now, let's focus on the alert summary. So we're going to select Maximize here on the main panel, and what we'll do is we'll get a better view of the process tree. From this view, we begin to get an idea of how this incident came to be. There's a lot of line items here that indicate PowerShell, and you'll see PowerShell.exe referenced a number of times here. Since the user, Jonathan Walcott, is an account executive, it's kind of reasonable to assume that executing PowerShell scripts isn't something this user is likely to be doing regularly. So if we look at that first instance of PowerShell.exe, you can see where it's executing a script. In this case, it shows that there was a PowerShell script executed at 4:57:11 a.m. Copilot has the ability to analyze this script. So what we could do is we can select the PowerShell script that we have here and choose Analyze. What this does is it gives me the ability to look at the code and find out what the code is actually doing. In this case, it suggests that it could be a phishing attempt or it could be used to deliver a web-based exploit. Now, if we go back to our original, you notice there's a link in the summary that says Show Code. If we click Show Code, what it does is it can show a defanged URL. There are several items that indicate PowerShell.exe executed a script. One of these here, where it says PowerShell ran an encoded command, the original script base was 64 encoded, but Defender has decoded that for you. And what you'll see is the underlying scripting code that's available for you. The analysis highlights the sophistication of the script used in the attack. Right. Now, if I'm going to close up the alert story here. All right. And what I want to do is I want to go back to the main page. I'm going to use that breadcrumb at the top to go back to the main link for human operated attack was launched from a compromised asset. And what we want to do is we want to look at now, how can I analyze the things or files that we're leveraging here? So I'm back at the incident main page. In the alert summary, you can see that Copilot identified a file, reboost.exe, which is associated with the Keiko malware. We can use file analysis within Defender XDR to see what other insights you can get. There's several ways to access files. From the top of the page, we can go to the Evidence and Responses tab. And from the left side of the screen, what we can do is we can select Files. In the files, the first thing we'll do is we'll select this reboost.exe file. Now you'll notice from the file window that opens, we have the opportunity to analyze this with Copilot. Remember, always look for the little Copilot icon that indicates that embedded Copilot experience that we talked about. If we analyze this, we now get a detailed analysis of what Copilot thinks the file does. Remember, think about the time this saves. Looking at that file, we don't necessarily inherently inherently know what that file does. Now we're able to use Copilot for security to say, well, what is this file? What does it do? What's its action? What kind of things does it take? This is what we use to be able to evaluate all of that. Task is starting to get more and more complex, and working within this window in Defender XDR can be kind of complicated. We might want to sort of farm this information out to more senior analysts. So what we want to do is we want to pivot from here, okay, and run the Defender incident playbook in the Defender for Copilot standalone version so we can pin our responses to the pin board, generate links to the investigation, and share this with more sophisticated members to get their help. So I'm going to go back to my main page. I'm going to go back here. All right. I'm going to go back to the attack story tab. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the three dots, the ellipsis, next to my incident summary. When I click that, you'll notice I get the option to open this in Copilot for Security. So if I click that, it'll open up the standalone experience for Copilot for Security. Now I have the availability of more prompts. In this case, I have a prompt book that I can run for the incident. I can go into, for example, the prompt icon here. All right. All right. I can say, see all prompt books. And then what I want to do is I'll run the Microsoft 365 Defender incident investigation. I click on that. It asks for the incident ID that this is referring to. And I could go back and I could grab that from the incident definition here, the original incident. I just happen to know it's 30342. I'll get that incident information, and then I can click Run. And you'll notice all the prompts that are going to run from this. Summarize, tell me about the entities, what's the reputation score for the IP addresses involved for the incident, authentication methods, if a user is using the incident, what devices they use. So I got 7 different prompts I'm going to run based on this prompt book. This is going to give me that kind of in-depth investigation that we talked about. So by pivoting to this, I can run that and I'm able to invoke like a broader set of security solution beyond just Defender XDR. I can leverage other plugins that are associated with that. All right. So once that runs, all of that information around those prompts that ran, I can go and select the checkbox next to the pin option, select that, and then save those responses to pin board. Okay. Remember, the pin board open automatically. All the prompts that I use, a summary of each one. I can manage the pin board service just by opening and closing the pin board icon. And then if I want to share this, I can click Share, and then I'm able to share this to whomever I need. So if I'm looking at this and I'm a tier 1 or tier 2 support person, and this is a little bit beyond my capacity, this is how I can take this overview information and get those highlights generated by Copilot for Security and share them to whomever I need. So think about, we talk about time so much when we talk about Copilot for Security. How long would it have taken us to generate these insights from this incredibly complex event? What I've been able to do is have Copilot for Security summarize this entire security incident. Take that summary, ingest it into its own standalone architecture, and then create an even more detailed elaboration of what this security incident looks like, allowing me to then pass that information on to relevant parties when necessary. This allows me to create complex investigations. This could involve multiple analysts. Copilot facilitates your ability to do this by easily sharing details of an investigation across multiple users.